Hey guys! Welcome to Turkish series stars. All the details are in our video. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and share this video before we dive in. Thank you so much. The entertainment world is rattled once again, and this time the shockwave centers on one of the most beloved duos of recent years. A blunt remark from Elçin Sangu about her dynamic with Barış Arduç has set the stage for a storm of commentary, speculation, and late-night debates. Those who have followed their journey, from intense on-screen chemistry to ongoing professional intersections, know how invested the public has been in their story. But a single line, voiced in a tense moment and amplified by the echo chamber of social media, has turned whispers into thunder. Insiders claim that during a private conversation that wasn't meant to reach the outside world, Elçin expressed a firm stance about not allowing a too-perfect narrative to be written for her and Barış. The wording was sharp enough to make fans freeze and replay, a declaration that she would not give space to a fairy tale ending for the two of them. It wasn't a confession of hostility, but it carried a tone of finality that stung. What started as a hushed aside traveled fast, morphed into headlines, and by morning became the only story anyone wanted to talk about. Their shared history is no secret. The roles they brought to life together bled into the public's imagination, making every glance on set, every reunion at an event, every advertisement that placed them side by side feel like a continuation of the same thread. Because of that, the directness of Elçin's sentence felt like a door closing, or at least a sign on it reading "Do not enter." Fans who for years collected clues and read between lines suddenly found themselves dealing with a blunt, heavy punctuation mark. The internet split in two within hours. One camp argued that Elçin's words were nothing more than a woman protecting her boundaries, setting limits, and reclaiming a narrative that had gotten away from her. The other side thought the remark was needlessly severe, a dramatic sweeping gesture that wasn't fair to the bond she and Barış had cultivated. Timelines filled with threads, side-by-side comparison videos, and long captions dissecting the cadence of her voice. There were those who stood up for her, saying a straightforward line beats months of ambiguity. Others begged for nuance. Amid this uproar, neither Barış nor Elçin issued a formal statement. Instead, what emerged were quiet whispers, that both were determined not to add fuel to a fire that was already wild enough. Reliable sources close to the pair suggested they were taking a calm, measured approach, letting the noise pass over like a rough sea tide. The goal, it said, is to keep their private communication clear, to set feelings down where only they can see them, and to avoid turning a personal moment into a never-ending public tribunal. Meanwhile, the press seized the moment with both hands. Headlines blared with interpretations and subtitles crafted to maximize intrigue. Commentators on entertainment shows debated tone, context, and intent, while fans pleaded for patience. The loudest question hummed beneath all this. What would this mean for their friendship, their working relationship, the spark that brought them into the same frame time and time again? The line Elçin delivered wasn't a legal contract, yet it felt binding in a way that numbers on paper rarely do. The emotional contract between artists and their audience had been jarred. The conversation didn't quiet down. If anything, the tremor turned into an aftershock. Industry figures took sides openly, some praising the clarity of setting a boundary in public life, others uneasy about the coldness they heard in her tone. Fans who adore Barış heard discouragement in those words and pushed back, insisting he didn't deserve to be framed as part of a story that ends in refusal. Supporters of Elçin reminded everyone how often strong women have their boundaries colored as harshness. In this tug of war, both stars were caught in a clamor they never asked for. Again, the pair held off from pressing the statement button. People close to Barış emphasized that he wanted to navigate this without spectacle, and those near Elçin echoed the sentiment. They are no strangers to attention, but there is a difference between curated spotlights and a blaring siren. What raged online felt like the latter. The plan, according to voices in the know, has been steady and simple. Keep working, keep talking privately, and let emotions settle before any public posture is taken. By now, the topic had bloomed into the latest obsession on every platform. Posts racked up views, threads reached hundreds of replies, and the debate took on a life of its own. Some insisted the remark closed a chapter, others believed it was a defense against being cornered by a romance narrative that has outgrown its roots. Anxious comments piled up beneath every new clip or photograph of them, as if the visual proof of their proximity could rewrite a sentence spoken in frustration. All the while, the memory of their collaborations kept looping in fans' minds. The scenes that once moved people to tears, the interviews that showed them teasing each other, the candid moments that escaped a controlled PR frame, every piece of the past resurfaced to argue its case. But one sentence, one boundary marked with a thick pen, continued to hold power. What would it mean for the next time they shared a set? Would the energy shift, or would professionalism smooth the edges? The days that followed brought rewordings of the same debate. New angles appeared hourly. Some asserted that the line was never meant for public consumption, and therefore should be granted the grace of privacy. Others said that once words enter the bloodstream of the internet, intent is irrelevant. Talk shows invited body language experts who slowed down clips of their last appearance together, pointing at smiles and pauses as if these could carry the weight of clarity. The mystery grew larger than the truth it circled. Once more, neither star folded under pressure. From what we hear, Barış tried to keep his routine intact, focusing on scripts, training, and the familiar rhythm of work. Elçin did the same, leaning into projects and stepping carefully around anything that could inflame the conversation further. That restraint, ironically, invited more speculation. People prefer statements, but sometimes silence is where the real sorting happens. Then came the late-night rumor mill, and with it a new current. Sources linked to their social circle suggested that Elçin's words were born from more than a passing spark of irritation. The story went that she had been carrying a heavy bundle of pent-up feelings around how their names are endlessly thrown together, how every individual move becomes collective property. If that's true, her line was less a final verdict and more a cry to stop being mapped onto a single destiny. To some ears, it still sounded merciless. To others, it finally explained the force behind the delivery. There was also talk about how the situation landed on Barış. Those close to him say he has been surprised by the speed and intensity of the reaction. The sudden flare-up reportedly exhausted him, not because he can't handle public interest, but because the discussion felt bigger than the space that should exist between two human beings talking at eye level. Friends say he has been trying to take long walks, keep the phone face down for a while, and let the pressure lift. In quieter moments, he has admitted the whole thing has worn him down. The story, however, refuses to let go. Every new development, every sighting, every whispered sentence spawns another wave. Yet even in the churn of conjecture, one detail remains unwavering: they are not rushing to assign blame or to lock themselves into a statement they'll later regret. There is a kind of maturity in the way they are dealing with the storm, a belief that not every gust of wind must be met with a wall of words. What will happen next? Observers are poised, watching for subtle signs. A glance on a carpet, a brief exchange at an awards show, an interview answer that seems to bend just a little toward revelation. It's the waiting that keeps people glued to screens. The truth is, a partnership built on chemistry does not evaporate with a single sentence, even if that sentence sits in the room like an uninvited guest. It either gets acknowledged and shown the door, or it teaches everyone to speak differently. In the meantime, commentary from the industry continues. Some directors praise both stars for staying centered amid the storm, others advise that clarity might cool the air. PR veterans remind everyone that the lifespan of online outrage is shorter than it feels, and that measured silence can be a strategy, not a surrender. But fans are emotional investors, and emotion rarely keeps tidy schedules. One thing is clear: the narrative surrounding Barış Arduç and Elçin Sango has been jolted. Their past closeness, the projects that stitched their names together, and the public's hunger for a storybook ending have collided with a boundary asserted in unmistakable terms. Whether that boundary was a momentary shield or a long-term line in the sand is the very question keeping this topic at the top of the feed. Even now, threads multiply. The camps remain divided, with people claiming either grace or severity for the same set of words. You can feel the pulse of the discussion by simply scrolling, admiration tangled with frustration, hope braided with caution. Some argue that drawing lines in public life is a necessary act of self-care, others fear it chills an artistic bond. Both sentiments can be true, and that complexity is exactly why this has not faded overnight. Will we get a definitive answer? Perhaps, but perhaps not on the timeline the audience demands. Trust between two people, once pushed under the microscope, has to rediscover the space where it can breathe. And maybe that is what they are fighting for right now: air, room, quiet. If they choose to speak later, it will be from steady ground, not from the edge of a cliff shaped by hundreds of thousands of opinions. For now, the last word belongs to the echo of that original line, and to the careful steps being taken in its aftermath. It's a reminder that our favorite stories are made by people who live beyond the frame. That truth can sting when a fantasy feels close enough to touch, but it can also be a path to more authentic work, more honest appearances, and perhaps a deeper kind of grace. As we watch this unfold, the only certainty is that the spotlight will follow them wherever they go. Their chemistry is too bright, their history too entwined with the audience's feelings, for it to be otherwise. Whether they rebuild a softer narrative together or keep a respectful distance, the next chapter will be studied, replayed, and discussed. And somewhere within all those conversations, two people will keep trying to talk to each other without the entire world listening in. We've reached the end of our video. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to Turkish Series Stars and share this with friends who follow every twist in this story. See you next time.